From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Well, he is kind enough to join us from his home in historic New York. I guess they're in the Hudson Valley, you'd say. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is the martial artist of trend forecasting. The purpose of trend forecasting is to provide insights and directions and anticipation of what the future may bring, and to be prepared for the unexpected. Gerald Celente, a close combat practitioner and black belt trainer, well understands the importance of protecting rather than reacting and being proactive. The first rule of close combat is to attack the attacker. Action is faster than reaction. The same holds true for the future. You know the future is coming. Attack it before it attacks you. Founder of the Trends Research Institute in 1980, Gerald Celente is a pioneer trends strategist. He is author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trend Tracking Warner Books, and Far Better Than Megatrends, and publisher of the internationally circulated Trends Journal newsletter. And that's putting it lightly. He's made a lot of accurate predictions, been very accurate for decades, and we always enjoy having Gerald Celente up here because we understand that we need to see where the elite are going, what the globalists are setting up, what's happening in the future. Gerald, you and I and many others predicted GM would go bankrupt. They're hacking it up in pieces, giving it to China, Russia, and Brazil. The public doesn't seem to know that, even though it's in Bloomberg and the news. It's buried that we're paying the bailout money through World Trade Organization agreements, that the bailout money can't be spent exclusively here, so large portions have to be spent internationally. So we're paying to have it shipped out overseas. Banks are collapsing. Real estate market, you predicted a year ago on this show, is really imploding faster. And you said the big thing would be commercial real estate. Now that's accelerating. They're openly announcing youth brigades, red and black uniforms. We're going to play some video of that. We found a new bill. Burmis did earlier. He's going to be covering tonight, 9 to midnight, here on prisonplanet.tv. We're going to cover that with you, where they openly say again, national compulsory service. It's, even though you and I have predicted this is coming, and many others have seen, the tyranny, it's still hard to believe it's actually manifesting. Gerald Celente.
It is hard to believe it. It began really in full blast under Bush with his TARP programs, and buying out, as we did with Bear Stearns, was that $30 billion they guaranteed. That sale to, I believe it was J.P. Morgan, the takeover of Fannie and Freddie, the mortgage companies, owning AIG, the world's largest insurance company, now Chrysler and GM. And as we know, the definition of the merger of corporate and state powers is called fascism, according to Mussolini, who knew a thing or two about it. And that's what we're seeing now, the first stages of what we're calling fascism light. And you're pointing it out very well with the uniforms, the compulsory service, and all of the steps that they're taking, where the government is now infringing deeper and deeper into our lives, to the point where now 1 out of every $6 that are being spent in this country is coming from the government. So it's a trend that happened really in a little over a year, where America went from the world's greatest entrepreneurial country, where no one was too big to save, or to fail, where now the rest of us are too small to save, and we're becoming servants of the major companies. Again, current events form future trends. We just look at the expansion plans for Walmart. It's very ironic. They used to say, as goes General Motors, or what's good for General Motors is good for America. And now we can say, as goes Walmart, so goes America. They're going to create another, they're bragging about it, 22,000 jobs. Whoopee. Compare those to the jobs we used to have when this country had a manufacturing base.
Well, Walmart, I mean, don't they on the whole food chain, they fill kind of the vulture or maggot position that, sure, the vultures and maggots do well when the rest of the economy's dead, but only for a time.
Well, that's exactly it, and the kind of jobs they produce. I mean, who really wants to go to college or anywhere else, or even get a high school degree, and then be relegated to working at Walmart?
I know a lot of folks with college degrees who are working at the grocery store or Walmart, and they're not too happy. That's something else you talk about. It's the college bubble, but go ahead.
So what we're doing is, when you hear these advertisements, Alex, where Walmart brags about, everyday low prices, well, sure, everyday low, we're turning into a Walmart economy. Everyday low prices. With everyday low prices comes everyday low paying jobs. With everyday low paying jobs comes everyday low quality. So every day America is sinking lower and lower. The GM bailout in this country, it should be, I believe that these people in Congress, from the president down, should be being brought up on criminal charges for abrogating our Constitution and becoming so involved in private industry to the levels that they've become. And when you read their thin defense for it, they use quotes like, well, we had to do this, and we hope to be... What do you mean you had to do this? Who said you had to do this? Certainly not the American people.
Well, notice, Gerald Celente, that the more they do, the worse it gets for all of us, but the better for them. And this is my question for you, and then finish the point we're making, is that we have the IMF and World Bank bragging about imploding third world nations by design, buying off their governments, destroying confidence in the supposed recovery, then consolidating even more. The big government system, the big central banks offshore, George Soros saying he's having a great crisis, culmination of his life, they're bragging that they love it, everything's falling apart, because then they are flush with all the fiat currency and credit they create out of nothing. They get to buy up all the real assets. They get to pose as the saviors of the crisis they created. They're openly announcing a new Bank of the World will pay our carbon taxes to. They're telling us the new recovery is lower quality, less jobs, less freedom, less mobility. So they're advertising bondage and chains as the recovery. I mean, they know these people are crazy like a fox, or do you disagree?
Well, to some extent, yes and no, in the sense that I think they're crazy like a fox in that the objective is to take control of our lives, and they're doing it in every way possible. And they use these crises, not that they're so much as manufactured, but they exploit them for everything that they're worth. And that, as Rahm Emanuel had noted, that you never let a good crisis be squandered. And that's what they're really doing as we see it. The second thing, Alex, is, in building on what you said, is one of our forecasts, as you know, we're calling for the bailout bubble. And just briefly, we had first the .com
I got to
bubble.
stop you. You said that first, I remember, like a year ago or 9-10 months ago. Now they're calling it bailout bubble on the news without giving you credit. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So now the bailout, first that we had, well, not first, but the most recent was the .com bubble. The .com bubble burst. $5 trillion was lost in the markets. Rather than let their too-big-to-fail friends lose big money, they created the other bubble. They lowered interest rates to 46-year lows, flooded the marketplace with cheap money. Again, every time they do that, they devalue our standard of living. But they created the real estate bubble. Go out and borrow on your house. It's a piggy bank. You want to build that new addition, go on a vacation, buy a new car. It's cheap. Just go do it. They created the next bubble. That bubble burst. And, of course, they love to blame the little people, not talking about ever these leveraged buyout firms like Carlyle and Blackstone and Cerebus, on, who bought companies for virtually no money down, worth tens of billions of dollars. That was where the real credit crisis happened, by the way.
And by the way, before I forget, let me bring this up. I'm sure you've seen all the news. where they do stress tests on healthy banks, and the government says, no, you haven't done well, so the bank plunges, and then the government basically hands it over to Carlyle. I mean, this is just piracy.
Well, again, look who's involved with Carlyle. Look at the members of the Carlyle group. You know, it's the Bush wing of the mafia. You know, so as we look at the players, you know, where the money goes, follow the money. So now we have the bailout bubble. And this really, what we're talking about now is that, and building on what you said, now when this bubble bursts, and it's going to burst, when this one bursts, there's no way to reinflate another bubble.
This